How's it going? We're going to talk about Vermont state payroll tax, Vermont state income tax withholding and tax rates, and how to calculate a paycheck for an employee that resides in Vermont. It's a state that's close to home for me. I went to college at the University of Vermont, graduated about 20 years ago. Love the state. I was just there a few weeks ago. Apparently, I shouldn't have been because there are like 2 week quarantines mandatory if you drive there from a different state. So I basically drove through the state of Vermont and didn't really stay there. But when they eventually open up again, I'm sure you'll want to go back there and visit the mountains and all the beautiful sights to see in Vermont. So let's talk about payroll tax withholding for 2020. This is the payroll and Excel application. You can buy this on kenbraverman.com. You can contact me. We're having a version that's going to work in all 50 states for 2021, but let's just talk about Vermont for right now. So what do you need to know if you're an employer in Vermont, small business employer, and you have employees that are Vermont residents? What do you need from them? How do you calculate the tax? Let's do this as fast as we can and just kind of go over all this information. So in this payroll file, you're going to put information like the last name of the employee, the first name, a social security number if you want to put it there. Did the person fill out a 2020 W-4? The answer is yes or no. If the answer is yes, which it really should be going into the future years here, you're going to then fill in some information over here about the W-4 and what's on that new 2020 W-4. Like what is their W-4's filing status? Do they have any other income? Are there any additional deductions on line 4B? All these things are located on the W-4 and a simulated W-4 that I have here where you can answer all these questions for your employee. But anyway, you'll have those things to fill out. If they filled out a 2020 W-4, more questions to answer. Besides that, is the person married or not? In Vermont, there are 2 different tables, one for single and one for married and head of household. So are they married, yes or no? If they're head of household, I think you want to answer yes that they're married for that, really. So the state allowances or state deductions, itemized allowances or deductions you have, how many do they have? That's on the Vermont W-4 equivalent there. 1, 2, however many it is. The state that they're in, their state for unemployment insurance, and then as I mentioned before, these things that are related to the W-4 in this purple section here. Those are pretty much everything you need to get from your employee to figure out what kind of status they're in to be able to calculate the tax. The next thing you do is record hours for that person on certain days or whatever. We have that here. You can just put in a day, choose the employee from the drop-down list right here. All your employees are going to pop up. How many hours did they have? What type of hours were they? They would go right there. After you've done that, you go to your pay period record sheet where you're going to have all the information in here about your employee and stuff that you've already entered in. This is going to be the total number of hours that this employee has worked for this pay period. Ira Allen has worked this many hours for this first pay period. You put an hourly rate in here, whatever the hourly rate is. Any bonus or salary amount would go here. Check number would go here. And there's all these different deductions and things which I won't talk about now. We're just going to get into the Vermont state tax area, which is all the way over here, and how you calculate Vermont state tax. What you need to do is, this is using the annualized tax method, which meaning you're going to take the gross pay for the period, or the federal taxable gross amount for the period, and you're going to multiply it up here in this formula. You're going to multiply it by the number of pay periods that are in the year. In the file that we're looking at, this is actually set for bi-weekly, or paying every 2 weeks. So the number of pay periods in the year end up showing right here. There's only 26 pay periods in this year. You can change this file to reflect any different type of payroll schedule, whether it be weekly or bi-weekly or semi-monthly. All these things can change. So in this scenario, you're looking at one that's bi-weekly. So when you go back to looking at this formula, it's taking the federal taxable gross, which is right over here. Federal taxable gross is here. And it's multiplying this $4,052.50 by 26, because that's the number of pay periods that are in this year. Then it's going to subtract out the number of Vermont exemptions that the person's claimed. That's the state allowance column right here. This person has claimed 2 exemptions. So that 2 gets multiplied by what is the standard deduction amount for Vermont, which is right here is $4,350 for 2020. That's going to go up slightly in 2021. So in the new version, this will probably go up to like 4,400 or something like that. That's how much you get to deduct from your taxable gross when you multiply this number by the number of state allowances claimed on your Vermont W-4. So that's what this formula is telling you, is it's saying take your federal gross, multiply it by the number of pay periods in the year, and then subtract out your allowances times 4,350, because that's the annual allowance amount. That leaves you with a Vermont annualized taxable wage amount, which is this $96,665. You then have two different formulas that you could potentially run here. One for if you're single and one for if you're married. So what you can do here is it's a nested if formula. It's just you're saying if the wages are less than 3,125, there's no tax. If the wages are less than 43,475, take the taxable gross, subtract out 3,125, and multiply 3.35% times the remainder. It's just this nested if formula. So there's a couple different ways to throw that formula into the cell. I can post this in the comments below. This one's pretty easy to do. And then you're just going to choose whether or not the person was married, and it's going to put the tax right here. So you got the single rate table and the married rate table. And that's pretty much all you need to do. You just need to know your Vermont W-4 allowances and know these tables, and you end up with a pay stub that looks like this and shows your Vermont tax withheld based on whatever your gross wages are. So Vermont is fairly straightforward, fairly easy. Almost everything in that state kind of has that mantra attached to it. Big, huge fan. So if you're interested in Payroll for Excel, this file is $100, and it can really save you a lot of time when it comes to running your own payroll for a small business and making sure that all your reports are organized here. I mean, how quickly is it to get a Vermont report out of this? You just go right here, you choose Vermont, and boom. Sorry if you didn't see that with my head there. You just choose Vermont from this drop-down menu, and whatever quarter you're in or whatever month you want, and you're going to get your reports that you need to file with the state, and of course your federal reports here that you need to file your federal 941 report. So that is Vermont in under 8 minutes. If you have any questions, go to kenbraverman.com or comment below and I'll help you out. And payroll should be easy, so make it so.